My name is Yair Davidiy. I'm speaking to you from the area of Israel, from the country of Israel, and today we're about to discuss the physical appearance of Asian Israelites. What do they look like, what colour were they, and what race did they belong to, and so on. And so you can go into head shapes and DNA and blood types and so on, and all the rest of it. We're not going to do that now. We're just going to discuss what colour were they according to the sources, according to the Bible, and then according to the sages and related texts, and also according to archaeological findings and Egyptian depictions of the Asian Israelites and related areas of research and of revelation. At all events, at present, this present talk is discussing what does the Bible say about what the Asian Israelites look like. Now, first of all, how a person looks is determined by his environment to some degree at least. It's a combination of environmental influences and hereditary and DNA and whatever else you want. And so when the mix gets together, when one kicks in, the other goes out. That's another question, but it definitely is a factor. Where we have cold countries, a lot of snow, the animals and the humans look blonde and white and have fair eyes and fair skins. You have the macaque monkey that lives in snow regions in northern Japan and China and so on, and looks blonde because that type of climate is good for blonde people, even though the Japanese and the Chinese are not like that. The people who live in related areas such as Scandinavia and the Baltic regions do have the same colouring, even though they're not necessarily all related to each other. So this is a factor that must be considered, and it seems that Jacob himself gave us an example of how environmental influence can determine the colouring of the offspring. When in the story of Jacob took sticks. He put sticks in water when the sheep and the goats were coming up to mate, when they're on heat. When the ones he was interested in, the offspring of whom he was interested in, that is the stronger ones, came up to mate, he put these sticks in the water, and these sticks, which had the bark built off them in certain shapes, influenced the colouring of the offspring. And however you want to take this story, it does seem to tell us that the environment, the external influences, influence how animals and human beings come out, how they appear. After that, we have the story of Jacob, who's renamed Israel. When Jacob was born, he was born with a twin called Esau, also known as Edom. Jacob was described as smooth, whereas Esau was described as hairy and reddish. The word used for reddish is admoni, which can mean brownish in the case of Esau, but not necessarily so. It more likely means someone who has red hair. We also find this same word admoni applied to King David. King David was also described as an admoni, which is usually taken to mean someone with golden hair or someone with very red hair. And this fits the text. This fits the text concerning King David. We are told in 1 Samuel 16 verses 12 and onwards, it says, "So he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy, with beautiful eyes and handsome appearance. And the Lord said, Anoint him, for this is he," and so on. For he is ruddy. The word translated as ruddy is admoni, meaning a redhead, having red hair. Also verse 18, 1 Samuel 16:18, it says, "When one of the young men said, Behold, I have seen a son of Jesse, the Bethlehemite," that is David, "who is a skillful musician, a mighty man of valor, a warrior, one prudent in speech, and a handsome man. And the Lord is with him." So he was known for being outstanding for his good looks. This was how David was described. And also we find 1 Samuel 17 verse 42, when David was coming up to fight Goliath the Philistine giant. It says, and the Philistine looked and saw David, he disdained him, he despised him. He was but a youth and ruddy admoni with a handsome appearance. In other words, he was red-haired, he stood out, was blatant. And apparently, even now we have prejudice against the white people, against redheads, and possibly some people consider themselves to look weak. And this prejudice was extended to King David. But David apparently was exceptional in this regard. Most of the people around him were not like that, did not look like him, as far as we can tell. At all events, this phenomenon existed, and it was came to expression in the King David. Or later we have the song of Solomon, the song of Solomon, the Shirim in Hebrew. The Song of Solomon is a love story, as we have explained elsewhere, between the King Solomon himself and Abishag, a young maiden who was darkish. And so the story goes on when the hero and the heroine are praising each other. That is a good portion of the story. They describe the physical features one of the other. The parent Abishag, or the heroine, the woman, the girl, is dark, is blackish in color, or very dark, but beautiful. Whereas the hero is white, lighter skinned, and he too is described. We have descriptions. It says the woman, the girl, one of King Solomon verses 1, verse 5, chapter 1, I am black but lovely, O daughters of Jerusalem, like the tents of Kedar, like the curtains of Solomon. Do not stare at me because I am swarthy, blackish, darkish. The sun has burned me. They made me my mother's sons were angry with me. They made me caretaker of the vineyards, but have not taken care of my own vineyard. So here the heroine describes, admits that she is very dark. She attributes her darkish features due to the environment, due to the sun's covering. But she also points out that this was exceptional. She was exceptionally dark compared to the people around her. And because of that, her own family were prejudiced against her due to this darkness of her features. Elsewhere we find that a dark colour is attributed more to hereditary, something that cannot be changed rather than environment. We have the expression of Jeremiah chapter 13 verse 23, can Ethiopian, the Cush in Hebrew, meaning Ethiopian or meaning someone from Africa, sometimes from India, according to the context, but apparently meaning someone who is dark of skin, blackish of skin. It says, can the Cushite change his skin, or the leopard's spots? So who we have, the expression saying that the darkishness of the skin was something that was immutable and that could not be changed. Later on, the Song of Solomon, the Shir HaShirim, still in chapter 1, verse 15, it says, how beautiful you are, my darling, how beautiful your eyes are like doves. And here it is the heroine is describing the hero. The hero is described that he has eyes like doves. Doves are greyish in the Middle East. They are grey. Or even light blue. So this is how the eyes are described, as having grey eyes. And then the hero goes on and replies, and he describes the heroine. He says, how beautiful you are, my darling, how beautiful your eyes are like doves behind your veil. So too, he says that the eyes of the heroine, even though she's dark of colour, dark of hair, she apparently had light-coloured eyes, which is also something that sometimes happens, or actually happens quite frequently, but it's not the general rule. And her eyes are also described like doves behind the veil. Your hair is like a flock of goats that have descended from Mount Gilead. Goats usually were dark, even black in colour in the Middle East. So her hair is described as like a flock of goats, a dark flock of goats with light-coloured dove-like eyes. Again, the hero, the man, is described in chapter 5 of King Solomon. The heroine, the woman, describes her lover, her man, as my lover is dazzling hibuzach, meaning shining white, very white, and ruddy, white and red, whatever that means, but very white, very red, outstanding among 10,000. His head is like gold, pure gold hair, and also it says his locks are like clusters of dates, and black as a raven. So it's either gold or it's black, but these two descriptions are given to the hair colour. His eyes are like doves. Doves, once again, beside streams of water, bathed in milk and reposed in their setting. It could, in this case, the hero is described as having both golden locks and black locks, golden hair and black hair. It could be the Egyptians depicted the people from the land of Israel, from the area of Israel, very often as having black hair or very dark brown hair and reddish beards or blondish beards. Also sometimes blackish beards as well, but blonde beards or rich beards appear to have been quite frequent, so this could perhaps resolve the contradiction. In this case, he could have had a blonde, golden-haired beard and a black hair. And this is a phenomenon that exists. I've seen it in Israel, and also my own father had very dark brown hair, which usually looked black. When he grew a beard, it was reddish. So perhaps this phenomenon is, and such an appearance is how the Egyptians painted or illustrated people from the land of Israel according to archaeological findings. We find again in the Song of Solomon's chapter 6, again the heroine is described as having black hair and white teeth. It says, Song of Solomon's 6, verse 5, "Turn your eyes away from me, for they have confused me, and your hair is like a flock of goats." Flock of goats are black goats. In other words, that have descent from Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of ewes of very white teeth, shining white teeth and black hair. The contrast which had come up from their washing, all of which bear twins, and not one of them has lost her young. And again, the heroine is described by the hero in Solomon 6:7. "Your head crowns you like carmel, and the flowing locks of your head are like purple threads," a purple colour of hair. In other words, very black, almost pitch black, which are tending to purple, bluish colour. "The king is captivated by your tresses." So here we have it. We have these two contrasting phenomenon, both black hair and white hair, or light-coloured hair. Apparently both types were present amongst the Israelites. We also have the case of Moses. Moses married a Midianite woman. His wife was named Zipporah. She was the daughter of Jethro, and she's described as a Cushite, being a very dark, blackish woman, and it may be that was the reason, according to some commentators, why Aaron and Miriam were angry at Moses for taking such a woman, the Cushite woman, possibly because they were prejudiced due to her colour, and because of that they were punished. God punished them. And what was the punishment of Miriam? She received leprosy, shining white leprosy. In other words, you thought white was so good. See how you like being really white. And that was a punishment, and then Moses prayed for her and she was healed. But anyway, she was reproved. God does not want us to be racially prejudiced against anyone according to the story. It's also common sense, it's common decency. But in case people want to think in a different direction, so we have this anecdote in the Bible to tell us what happens, what is liable to happen, what the Almighty thinks about such attitudes. And we have another point. We have another point concerning leprosy. Leprosy in the Bible. Leprosy is caused by spiritual imperfection. Something is wrong with the person in the spiritual sense. He is different reasons given for it according to the sages. He's been telling lies. He's been spreading stories. Scandal monger, gossip monger. Or he has an evil eye against people. He is jealous of other people. He is resentful of the well-being of other people. Something is wrong with him. He causes dissension in the community. Because of that, he is afflicted physically, and he will be quarantined, set apart from the community until he rectifies his ways, until he corrects what needs to be corrected and repents, and then he will be healed. That is the story of leprosy in the Bible, but it also had a physical aspect. So the physical aspects was different types of leprosy. There's leprosy in the body, leprosy in the clothes, leprosy in the house, and in the body there's also different types of leprosy. Leviticus chapter 13 gives a description of the different types of leprosy. It it tells in one case we have a lesion on the skin, the afflicted is brought to the priest, to the Kohen. Kohen examines it, and he looks at it, and if he sees that the usual colour of the hair is assumed to be black, if it has turned white, the Kohen separates the person, sets him aside, and then examines him later. And if the colour has penetrated to the skin, then he is a leper. If it has not penetrated to the skin, then he is released. And so too, there's an infection on the head or the beard. With the black hair, it starts to turn yellow. And the priest examines him, and if the yellow colouring has penetrated to the skin below the hair, he quarantines him, and he sets him aside, and he comes back and he checks him again, and he sees if there's any improvement or if it's gotten worse, and according to that he decides whether or not the person is to be a leper. And so all of these cases, we need to examine this very carefully, very deeply, see what the commentators say. We cannot give any firm answers at the present time, but the indications are that the Bible is assuming that the normal colour of hair in biblical times amongst biblical people was black. Apparently they had black hair, even though, as we have shown, there were people with red hair were also present, people who had blonde hair were also present. This is confirmed by the sages, by legends, even by archaeological findings, as we will show in future talks. But the whole story is not black and white, as if to say. And the subject is still open, but is of interest to everyone. May the Lord God of Israel bless you. Thank you.